Hello everyone, welcome back to our AIS virtual workshops. And this is our final workshop of the spring 2020 semester. So for this workshop, our topic will be focused on website accessibility with me, AIS Director of IT, Nhi Nguyen, and today we have actually special guests with us. Today I invite two very special guests to come and help me with the workshop on website accessibility. The first guest speaker is my roommate, or you can also file her as the e-portfolio phase whenever you need help on e-portfolio for the MIS, which is Michelle Panama.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Purnelma. I'm also Nhi's roommate. I'm a senior, graduating this semester, also an MIS major, and I'm excited to lead this workshop with you. I think we have another guest speaker, right?
Yes, so the second guest speaker is this one, and we're gonna let him introduce himself right now.
Hi everyone, my name is Long. I graduated from MIS last year, and I used to be pretty active in AIS. And now currently I am an accessibility analyst at Level Access. And what we are talking about in this TD workshop is what I do for the most part in my day-to-day work. So I'm thankful for Nhi, I'm thankful for AIS for inviting me back and giving me a chance to show you guys why accessibility is important for our society.
All right, so for this workshop, here's our agenda. First, where's my hand? We're gonna learn about a general overview of website accessibility, know why we need to learn about it and what is the benefit of it. The second part of the workshop is getting you setting up, including download VS Code and including practicing the screen reader for Mac users and Windows users to open our exercise file, include a lot of HTML, JavaScript, and CSS files. And then moving on to the third part, we're gonna go into the hands-on activities of a little like different little part of the workshop to let you know why we need to do it for website accessibility. And finally, I want to provide you some resources that you can learn on your own and go over the submission so you're aware of the attendance tracks for the pro points. So now I'm gonna pass it to Michelle so she can give you a brief overview of what is website accessibility.
So before we learn about how we can make our websites more accessible, let's talk about what does web accessibility mean. So it's about the design of products, devices, services, or environments for people with disabilities. So at the core of web accessibility is how we can make things work for everyone regardless of their abilities. So you guys might be familiar with Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA. So other than the ADA, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, also known as WCAG, is an internationally recognized formal guidelines on how to develop accessible web content. WCAG itself does not have any official legal power to require compliance. However, many countries have adopted WCAG standards and actually require websites to comply with them. Examples of those countries are United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia. Other than that, some other countries only require WCAG compliance for governmental websites only. So here you can see that this is the dimension of disabilities. There are 4 major category types of disabilities, and they are touch, hear, see, and speak. As you can see, even someone with no disability can come into situations or circumstances where they cannot see, speak, touch, or hear. For example, here we have a bartender, which is considered to have a situational disability in terms of the hearing. This is because when a bartender works in a bar, which is usually very crowded, he or she might have a reduced sense of hearing. In the same way, for temporary, we have, for example, arm injury, where you have a temporary arm injury that might prevent your ability to touch or to simply move around. Therefore, going back to the previous point, it is important for us to design for accessibility to benefit everyone.
So you must be wondering, why do we have to care about website accessibility anyway, right? Well, here's the thing. Almost 1/5 or 20% of the total population globally are people has some kind of disability. And further than that, in the past, government, schools, or any educational institute, if they don't worried about website accessibility, that could count as if they are doing against the law. And then recently, a survey by Accenture have accounted the total disposable income of the people within the disability community has accounted for $8 trillion every year. And this is actually the third largest economic power just after the US and China. So if they were to have the nation of their own, they would be the third most powerful nation in the entire world. So in the past, a lot of company, a lot of website, governmental organizations, they worry about website accessibility so that they don't want to violate the law. But nowadays, a lot of company are being more proactive in managing their website and making their website more accessibility because of the monetary value of it.
So do you know that web accessibility also benefits people without disability? So this is an example. We're going to show you a clip from Frozen, the trailer Frozen with audio description. So it shows how people who say who are blind, how they can watch a movie. So let's play the clip.
To a purple flower peeping out of deep snow.
Hello.
He takes a deep sniff.
Oh, yes.
His nose lands on a frozen pond.
So in this
A reindeer
video,
looks
you
up
can see
and pants like
that
a dog.
it actually describes every
Seeing the
single
reindeer
scene that's
sleeping now,
happening in
the
the
snowman
movie.
smiles and
So if you
nods.
can't look at the screen, you can still understand what's going on and visualize it by the way it's described. So this really helps people who can't see, or even for people like us, say you want to watch a movie while washing the dishes, you can look at the screen, you can simply turn on audio description so you can still know what's happening while you do your own thing.
Reindeer's tongue sticks to the ice. The snowman hurls his head. Twig arm and reindeer lips tug at the carrot. The carrot
Okay,
flies
I'm
up.
gonna start a video right
Yeah.
there, and you guys can also Google it on YouTube if you wanna watch more of it.
So this is a quote that I really like from Steve Kirk, who's the author of Don't Make Me Think. It's a really good book on usability and UX design, if anyone wants to check that out. But he says, the one argument for accessibility that doesn't make nearly often enough is how extraordinarily better it makes some people's life. How many opportunities do we have to dramatically improve people's life just by doing our job a little better? And this really resonated with me. And as you can see in the exercises that we will be doing is that we can take small steps that can tremendously impact accessibility and make it more accessible for people with disability. And it doesn't take a lot of time either.
So now let's actually getting you on the hands-on experience by having you setting up for our exercises for today's workshop. So the first thing you need to do is to download VS Code, which is Visual Studio Code. For some of you who already attend MIS 2402 or 3502 or even 2101, you must be very familiar with this software. But for those who don't, you can go on our folder, which we have right here. This is the folder that we have for you, and in here we have the installation instruction. For VS Code, I put in the link for Mac user and Windows user, so make sure you download that first before we moving on with our exercise. So for those of you that already have VS Code on and installed on your laptop, go ahead and download the WS3, which is Workshop 3 code for this exercise. So right click and do download. It's scanning for viruses, blah, 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 blah. And once it's downloaded for my Mac, it should be in my download, which should be right here. And when you finish locating the code, finish locating the folder, go ahead and open it out. It will unzip the folder for you and have the entire folder right here. So in order to make it easier, I'm gonna move all of my folder outside to my desktop screen. You can either do that by dragging, which my mouse not cooperate with me right now. Oh, okay. So go ahead and do dragging out to your desktop screen. Right. Once you do that, you will have everything within this desktop, including a lot of the HTML pages. We focus on 3 of them: CSS file for like style and color, and make changes to the displayment of your browsers. And we also have JS, which is the coding backend. So once you have that one, go ahead and open your VS Code. So in Launchpad, I have my VS Code on my navbar below my laptop, but then for those who don't, go to Launchpad and type that VS Code, and you can double click on it to open it. In here, you're gonna connect your VS Code to your file, your folder. So let's go to File, click Open, and go to Desktop, and you should have this folder right here. Remember to open that with the folder, not the zip folder. So when you do that, click Open. Once you click Open, voila, you see that all of the file in that specific folder have opened it within VS Code. In here, you have 3 HTML page, which would be the place where we mainly focus our exercise on for today. And you also have the file for CSS, which is for animation, color, style, font. For your layout, we also have different fonts to make it fancier, but you don't need to worry about this for the workshop. And we have a lot of image that we're gonna use for our website, which you're gonna see appearing on the website later on. And JS, which stands for JavaScript, so this is more of the functionality of the website. So in here, I have 2 more tips for you to do before we move on. So go in your home page. This is where we're gonna start our first workshop, first exercise. And before you even start, go to File and click on Autosave. So by clicking on this button right here, you will have your code save automatically without have to save it every time you fix it, because sometimes you might forget saving it, and as a result, it won't show up on the browser when you're editing the code. And the second tip I have for you is when you go under View and you click on Toggle Word Wrap, it actually wrap the word on of the line of code for you. So if you minimize it or maximize the screen, it won't. So since I have like Toggle Word Wrap, everything fall into places. For example, taking this line of code at 101, when I move my screen smaller, the code will like wrap within the screen for me. But if you don't have it, let's say you don't have it right here, you have to like scroll to the right to see all of the line of code, and that could be very challenging for you, and you might forget something because you don't see it right in front of your face. So make sure you put on Toggle Word Wrap. And now the final thing before we move on to the first exercise is in home page, go ahead and open your default browser. So for mine, it would be Chrome. And this is the website we're gonna work on for this workshop. So just go around exploring it, clicking on different links to see what we have to offer. And we're gonna show you why this website is not very accessible for all of the users. And to make it easier, we also create a guideline for you guys to follow. So if you can open it, you should start from this exercise right here. So this is very optional, but we're gonna show you how to activate your screen readers so you get to experience how it feels like for the people within the disability community. So for Mac, we're gonna use VoiceOver, and for Windows, we have this software called Narrator. So what is a screen readers? It is a software programs that allow blind or visually impaired users to navigate through the block of text or to navigate the display on the computer screen with a speech synthesizer. So I'm gonna demonstrate how you're gonna do the screen reader for Mac. So in the guideline for Mac, you have 2 options. You either use Siri by asking it to turn on VoiceOver for you, or you're using the shortcut. So once you use the shortcut, there is 2 different versions. So for the people who have the touch bar menu at the top, you need to do Fn Command F5 in order to turn it on. And once you turn it on, you will have the option to go over the voiceover quick start. And if you don't, just press the V key so you can start right away. So I'm gonna try to turn on my voiceover by doing Fn Command F5.
Voiceover on. Speech off.
So as you can see, we have the voiceover on, and mostly when we do scrolling down through menu bar, we cannot use our mouse. If we use our mouse, we have to be very careful in tapping on of the functionality of the website. So sometimes when we don't know how to exit it, for Mac people, just call Siri and ask Siri to turn it off for you. So that would be an easier way. So in this case, I'm gonna do, hey Siri, can you turn off voiceover?
Okay, I turned off voiceover.
So once you turn it off, you should have your mouse back, and then you should be the normal using way as you use.
To activate Screen Reader for Windows, we'll be using Narrator, which is created by Microsoft. And because Narrator, the screen reader, is created by Microsoft, we would need to use the Microsoft browsers, such as Internet Explorer or Microsoft Edge, to produce the best result. But to activate Narrator, we simply need to simply go to the Windows control and then type in Narrator and then activate Narrator from there. We can also use keyboard shortcut, so that's Control, Window key plus Enter to activate Narrator as well.
All right, now let's get to the hands-on activity of this workshop. So today we have 7 exercises for you to practice how we can implement different kinds of accessibility best practices to improve our webpage.
And since Michelle and I are Mac users, we're gonna showcase the first 5 exercises using a Mac.
And Long will show you guys how to do the last 2 exercises using Windows. Okay, so for today's workshop, we are going to show you the Cozy website, Cozy not cozy.
I call it cozy.
Here's the website. We made this fictional website for the purpose of this workshop. So Cozy is basically like a virtual cafe created by me, Nhi, and Long to satisfy your social distancing cravings.
Oh yes.
So if you look at this website, you might think that everything looks nice and nothing looks wrong, and this is sort of like a perfect looking website. But later, as we go through the workshop, you'll find out that there are a lot of accessibility issues here, and we will learn about different practices and implement them so that you guys can get a hands-on experience on how to improve the accessibility on your website. So the first accessibility guideline that will tell you is about color contrast. So color contrast is how we make sure that text stands out against the background to help users with low vision. So for example, if you have a light blue letter or text on a dark blue background, it's gonna make it really hard for users with low vision to actually read the content of the page. So we want to make sure that the foreground letters will pop up against the background. There are some tools that you can use to check the color contrast. Some of them are WebAIM or Contrast Checker, which is kind of like a color dropper where you can select a text and it will tell you the contrast ratio. But there's also a keyboard shortcut that you can access through your own computers. You can hit Control-Shift-C on Windows or Command-Shift-C on Mac. And now we'll show you how to do it. So let's move to the guideline file and also make sure that you have the code ready for this demonstration. All right, so now if you have your guideline and your website put up, I'll show you how to check the color contrast of a text element on a web page. So here we have the Cozy website. And then we can check it by just right-clicking on the web page, just anywhere, and then click Inspect. And then they will show you the HTML code for this website. And then let's navigate to a certain text element on the page, say the logo up here. And then if you hit Command-Shift-C or Control-Shift-C on Windows, Command-Shift-C, And then here, they will give you this small windows, and then look at the bottom, it says contrast is 2.06, and there's like a warning sign next to it, which means that the color contrast is too low, so we need to change it. So as a rule of thumb, the visual presentation of text and images of text should have a ratio of at least 4.5 to 1. While if the text is bolded or the text has a larger font, then the contrast ratio should be at least 3 to 1. So in this case, because the contrast ratio is only about 2 to 1, we have to change it. So let's change the color. So if you go to your style CSS, right here, and then go to line 101. So the color here is the color of the Cozea logo right now. So let's change it to something darker. To make it easy for you, we already have this color code. So just copy it here and you can change it. And after that, save the file and then refresh the web page. So you see how the color now it's a lot darker. And if you check the contrast ratio, it's now 7.16, which is a lot better than what we had before. So this logo now has an acceptable color contrast ratio. And then if you go to the checkout page, you would notice that we also have the Cozea logo here with the same color as before. And if you check the color contrast again, it's way too low, right? So we should change this one as well. So to do that, you can go to the checkout.css file, go to line 27, so right here, and then we want to change it with the same color code. And then again, save it and refresh. So here, the color just changed and the contrast ratio is much better. So we're done with that. And now for your exercise on your own, we want to ask you to change the color of another text. So let me just exit. So for your exercise on your own, we're going to find another text element that has a low color contrast ratio. And your exercise is to change it to a different color that will bring up the ratio. So if you scroll down all the way to the bottom of the page, you will see here we have AIS Technical Development Workshop 3. Let's check the color contrast. So do the same thing, hit Command-Shift-C. Oh wait, sorry. Need to right click on the page. So right now we're going to find another text element on the web page that has a low color contrast ratio. So if you scroll all the way down to the web page, here for the AIS Technical Development Workshop 3, let's check the ratio for this. So first thing first, you want to right click and click inspect. Right click, inspect, and then hover over this text element, and then the same thing, hit Command-Shift-C or Control-Shift-C if you're on a Windows. So here you can see that the contrast is below 2, which is way too low. So your challenge is to find a different color that will increase the color contrast ratio. So to get you started, we'll provide a hint for you. So to change the text in the footer, you can go to Style CSS right here and navigate to line 428. So this section right here. Pay attention to this section and change this color code to something else that will improve the ratio. And once you do that, make sure to check the color contrast ratio after you change the color. And once you're done with that, for the submission, copy the entire code from 428 to 434, so this whole chunk, and then paste it in the Google Form submission. Make sure to indicate the new color code and take a screenshot of the color contrast ratio when you check it, so we can see whether or not the color contrast ratio is acceptable.
All right, so for this next exercise, we will focus on links. So there are a lot of types of links. Some type of link can be easier to access more than the others, and some types of link are completely inaccessible to people with disabilities. And since link is one of the most basic and one of the most important to any website content, having an inaccessible link can cause a major severe barrier when it comes to the overall accessible content of the web. So in order to make the link accessible and be friendly to all users of your web, you either have to have the href attribute and make sure you put in the values for that href attribute. So you cannot leave it empty. And the next thing you have to do is right here when you need to have the underline for your link, so it's easier for people to navigate throughout your website. All right, so now for our exercise, I'm gonna share my screen. And then in here, going to the exercise number 2, we're gonna work on 2 of these items through exercise 2.1 and exercise 2.2. So for the first exercise, go ahead under the homepage.html, you open it in default browser again, which, oh, it's already open here, but I wanna open a new page. So in here, if you want to maximize it to see the full length of the website, you can see that we're working on the first one, which is the About section in line 95. Okay. So when you're in homepage.html, go ahead and navigate to line 46. You see that we have this navigation bar, and this is the About Us. So in the website, it should correlate to this navigation bar right here, and this is the About Us page. However, even though we have the anchor tag A, we don't have the href for this About Us. So let's try to open up our screen reader and then to see whether it can read the About Us or like skipping it completely. So going back to our page, I'm gonna bring on my screen reader for Mac, which should be Command F5.
F5 button. Audio output volume medium button. F5 button. You are currently on a button. To press this button, double tap anywhere on the touch bar.
Okay, so my voiceover is turning on for Mac. And now I'm gonna do the tab. So do the tab key.
Visited link. Homepage. Navigation. Chrome has new window.
So as you can see, when I tap it, it moved from the Coza logo, which already have the link in there, and then going to the homepage link. But if I go to the next tab, it would skip completely the About Us and move on to the product instead. So check it out.
Visited link. Products. Navigation.
So as you can see, even though all of this anchor, we have the same tag for anchor, for homepage,
Code.
About Us.
Homepage.html. WS3
Okay,
code.
I'm gonna
Window.
turn
Home
this one
voiceover
off.
off.
So you can see that even though we have all the anchor tag for all of the About Us and then homepage product, but then for the About Us, because we don't have the href attribute, therefore the voiceover skip it completely. So we're gonna fix this by adding in the href for the About Us, and we want to link that to this section right here. So in your guideline, if you move back to line 95, that would be our section that we want to add it in. And for this section, line 95 right here, the ID for this section is About. So we're gonna link the href to this About page. So go up here, and for ID, you're gonna do hashtag and do About. And after that, make sure you either save it or you already have the auto save, it will save it automatically for you. All right, now let's open it up again. Actually, I'm gonna refresh the page.
Cool. And try to do it first. You can see that when you click it here, it will show it to this page. So now let's activate your voiceover again by doing Command F5.
Voiceover on Chrome, Cozy, Google Chrome window, TTWS visited
Okay.
link, Cozy web con visited link, COZEEFQ
So-
navigation, Chrome has new window. You are currently on a tab link, home page, navigation.
Okay, so
You are
the
currently on a
next
tab
tab.
inside of a group, audio output volume medium button.
Oh,
You are Cozy web content. You are
so the
current link,
next tab
home
should
page,
be
navigation, Chrome has new window.
Oh,
Are you close?
no, I'm not posing. I'm gonna cut it out. All
Chrome
right.
has new visited Cozy web content. You
So
are
once
currently
you're
on
in
a button.
here,
To press this button, double tap anywhere on the touch bar.
let's do tab,
Visited link, COZEEFQ navigation, Chrome has new window.
and it will give you the tab to the Cozy logo. The next tab will get you to home page.
Link, home page, navigation. You are currently on a button. To press this button, double tap anywhere on the touch bar.
And now since we already add in the Href attribute, you'll be able to tap to the about us instead of skipping it like initially. So let's tap it.
Link, about us, navigation. You are currently on a button. To press this button, double tap anywhere on the touch bar.
Okay, and now if you want to move to the about us sections, let's do the spacebar or like any button, and then it will move you like right there. Cool. So that would be the end of our first exercise. Now we're moving on to our exercise 2.2.
Zoom.us, system dialog, Zoom meeting pop-up menu.
All right, so for the next one is underline the link. So as you can see on our page, we have the link right here, but when you hover it, then you can see they change the color. But then for people who don't use the mouse, they will not know because they're not like moving the mouse around and they only function within the keyboard. So in order to make it pop out and showcase to them that we have the link that embedded in our text, make sure you use the underline attribute to make this link underlined. So as you can see in here, going to line 106, which should be the line for that COVID-19 notifications. So I'm gonna scroll down to 106 and it should be right here. Social distancing, blah, 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 blah. And that according to this line of text on our homepage. In here, before the anchor, let's add in the U tag that stands for underline. And then after the closing tag of anchor, we're gonna do the closing tag of U too. So it should be the slash and then the U. Make sure you have that. So the U along is opening and the slash and the U is closing. So once you have that, go ahead and save it. And go back to your browser, refresh it again. And there you go, you should have the underline to the CDC website. When you click on it, it will open you to the new page. So for the submission of this exercise 2.1 and 2.2, first you need to fix the code, copy the code from line 46. So that should be this line right here that we fixed for the about us. So copy this. And the second one is copy the line from 106. The line from 106 should be right here. So copy all of this and make sure you put in the U tag for underline before you submit it. So moving on to the third exercise, this is a very tiny little difference that you might not notice, but then it's like a huge difference for people who are using screen reader, and that I'm talking about the logical semantic difference. So in here I have 2 bullet points. For normal people, when they do be or strong, it will showcase at the highlighted bolded text. And when they do I and EM, it's the same thing for like slanted word. However, using strong and emphasize rather than bold, B and I will make a huge difference for people who are using screen reader because this will stressing on the semantic expression of it. So for example, if you're doing audiobook and you're listening to it, and then you have it on the website and then you use the screen readers, then all of the things with strong and
emphasis, the screen reader will give you a stronger, more emphatic stretching on those specific words. Rather, when you have BNI, the screen reader will read it as the normal pace. So now that working on our exercise 3, I'm gonna share my desktop. So here we are in exercise 3. And what we need to do is, as of now, our home page on line 101, we have BNI instead of strong and emphasis. So let's go ahead and make it friendlier for all of the users. So as of you can see, we don't have any changes right now. We have bold text for this part and we have italics for this part. So go into your code line 101 and let's change P to strong and make sure you close the tag. Then for I, we change it to EM and we also change this one to EM. So once you do that, go ahead and save it and then refresh the browser again. As you can see, there's nothing much change on the browser visually, but then at the back end, when you use a screen reader, it can make a huge difference. So that is this for the exercise. We just want you to know that there are different ways to do things and there are different ways that you can make the website more friendlier for all of the users. So for the submission of this exercise, go ahead and copy the entire code in 101, put it in your submissions form, and you are done for this exercise.
The next exercise we'll work on is about media. There are two different kinds of media. The first one is images and the second one is videos or podcasts. For images, we need to put an alt text in our image elements in our HTML code. So alt text is basically the attribute of an image tag in HTML, and we'll show you what we mean by that later. So alt text serves as a replacement for non-visual users so that the screen reader can announce the description of the picture from your alt text. Also, for people with or without disabilities, having an alt text helps us understand what the picture is about in the case that the image fails to load in our web browser. So for example, imagine you have a website where you're promoting your business product. For example, let's say you're selling bacon and then you have a picture of tasty bacon on there. So if you don't have an alt text, people who can't see, they won't understand how delicious or how good looking your bacon is. So to capture that opportunity, we can add an alt text that says something like crispy and delicious bacon so that people with disability, they can understand how crispy and delicious your bacon is. As for videos or podcasts, we need transcripts and captions to allow users who cannot hear to understand what's being said in the video. If it's more than just a person talking to the camera, we also need to provide an audio description so that users who can't see the screen can still understand what's happening on the screen. So let's go to the exercise and practice how we can add alt text to our images. So I'm sharing my screen right now. Go to the guideline page and see here, we want to add an alt text to one of the image elements. So on your code, let's go to product.html and go to line 110. So here, right here, you see that we have an image tag and the source being tds3dalgona.png. So you can check out the images files on your VS Code by navigating to this img tag, and you can see that we have all the different images here. So let's say we click on the Dalgona. So this is the picture that it's referring to. So here, let's add an alt text and name it Dalgona Quarantine Coffee. So right now, I'm back in my guideline Word document. And then under exercise 4, we're going to add an alt text to one of the image elements. So let's go to product.html file on your VS Code and navigate to line 110. So right here, 111, we have the image tag, and you can see that the name of the image is tdws3 dalgona.png. So to know what image is referring to, you can navigate to this sidebar and click on img, and then it will show you the different images we have for this website. And then just double click on the image file, and it will show you exactly what image is referring to. So this is the image that is displayed on the web page. So right now, let's add an alt tag, alt attribute. So we want to write Dalgona quarantine coffee. Or you can name it whatever you like, that's appropriate. So after we do this, we are going to save the code. And then we're going to go to product and refresh the page. So obviously nothing happens here because the alt text is kind of underneath the image itself. So let's try to change the link of the image to make it the wrong image file. So let's just add a 1 here. So it's telling VS Code that, you know, this image is referring to this image file, which actually doesn't exist. So we'll throw us an error. So let's just try to save it and go back here, refresh the page again. And now, ta-da, the image is gone. That's because VS Code can't find the right image file. But if you kind of like see here, if you highlight it, you can see that the alt text is actually displayed here. It says Dalgona quarantine coffee. Obviously, ideally we want to change the text color to make it readable. So like say black. But in this case, you can see how in the case that the image fails to load, we can still understand what picture it wants to display by reading the alt text. So let's change this back, just save it. And then right now we want to activate your screen reader. So to see the effect of having an alt text on our image tag, let's activate our screen reader and see how it announces the content of our image element. So I'm going to go ahead and activate my screen reader by clicking on Fn Command F5 on a Mac.
VoiceOver on Chrome. Cozy. Heading scroll area.
And then click Control Option right arrow key to navigate the different elements. Just hold down Control Option key while you click on the right arrow key.
Heading level 2, coffee drinks. Horizontal splitter. Sure, you can simply use the coffee machine to get missing.
And then for the first image, you notice how it says unlabeled image, so the screen reader doesn't know what the image is about. But let's try the next image. So you might notice how it says Dalgona quarantine coffee. So here you can see how the screen reader actually announces the description of the image, even though we can't visually see the image. So this helps not just people without disability to understand the concept of an image if the image fails to load. More importantly, it helps people who cannot visually see the web page to still understand what's going on. So for your exercise, you can try to add an alt text to 2 other images on product.html. So you can just choose from any of these 2 images to add an alt text. And don't worry about using the screen reader if you can't get it to work, or if it's confusing for you, don't worry about it. You can just skip that part. We just want to demonstrate how it works for people who use screen reader. So simply choose 2 images, and then on your VS Code, go to product.html and just add an alt text to an image file of your choosing. So for example, if you want to add an alt text to the brown sugar boba, you can just add an alt text here and name it whatever you like. And then once you do that to 2 images, in the submission form, for each of the image where you added an alt text, you have to indicate the name of the image so that we know what image did you add an alt text to. And copy the respective line of code where you add the alt text. And lastly, indicate the line number of the code so that we can evaluate and look at it when you submit it.
Right, now we come to our exercise number 5, which we're gonna focus on the table element of the HTML. So for the table element, make sure that you only use table for the tabular data, and always making sure that you have the table headers. So for us visually, we can do table data for all of the table, and we don't have to specify the table headers because visually it appears the same on the website. However, for people who's using assistive technology like screen reader, when the screen reader scans through the table, it cannot specify which one is actually the values of the data cell and which one is the headers. So when it comes to pacing data, transmitting data, or reading and understanding data, the screen reader will have a lot of trouble identify the table and identify the value for the users. So, okay, for the share screen, I'm gonna share my screen with you and we're gonna go through exercise 5 together. So in exercise 5, under product.html, which should be, let me close all of this. Okay, now you have product.html ready up. And in here, go ahead and open it in the default browser as well. So we have it right here. I'm gonna close this Cose file just so we don't confuse. And when you expand the website, everything should look normally with the 4 image. Right, so now we're gonna work on the hands-on experience for exercise 5. So in here, you're gonna open the product.html by opening it in default browser, and I have it already open up right here. So if you go to the end, you will see that we have 2 tables, one for product prices and one for shipping fee. So now we're gonna identify these tables inside our code on the HTML file. Let me close this one so it doesn't appear that much. All right, and in here, in product.html, I'm gonna go and find a table 1, which should be right here. So as you can see in line 241, 242 is the table for product prices, which associate with this table. And then for line number 262, 263, it's gonna be the table associated with this part. Now, I'm gonna explain to you the table element of HTML. So usually when you have to make a table on the website, you will have the open tag for table, and then you have a closing tag as of here. And inside these tags, you have to open row by row before you put in the cells. So first of all, we have the first row, which should be product and price, and TD stand for table data, TR stand for table row. So on the website, you have the first row, which is this part. This is the first row. And then the second row is coffee and then the prices. So you continue doing that until you finish filling out all of the values. So this would be the second row. This would be the third row. So as you can see, we don't have any table header attribute because all we put in here is TD. So now let's go ahead and change the TD to TH to make sure that the screen reader read these 2 specific cells as table header instead of table data. So when you do that, go ahead and click Save, refresh it, and of course there's not gonna be any changes majorly on the website because there's no change visually. However, we do change that to table header so there's more clarification for the screen readers. So similarly, we're gonna do the same thing for the distance fee table. So change this one to TH for table header, also this for table header, and the rest will remain as table data, which is TD. Once you do that, save and then run the browser again, and there you go, you have made the website a little bit more accessible for all of the people and all of the users. So for your submissions, what you can do is you can copy the entire code, which gonna start from 239, which is the first table, going to the next table and end at 277. And then just copy all of this code after you fix it, put it in the submission form, and you are good to go.
So moving on to exercise 6 and 7 on keyboard interaction and form fields. On the topic of keyboard interaction, the most important concept is that users with disabilities should be able to navigate the page and interact with the page using only keyboard. And this is very important because users with a mobility issue or users who can't see the screen cannot use the mouse. So they depend entirely on the keyboard to help them navigate and interact with the website. So when the most important key for keyboard-only users is the tab key. So that when users activate the tab key, it will ideally generate what's called a focus. And a focus indicates the interactive element that the user is currently on. And it's very important because the focus indicates where they are on the page as well as what element that the users can interact with. And as users tap through the page, the sequence in which the focus goes through the page, that's called the focus order. And we also want to make sure that the focus order is logical for users, for keyboard-only users. And a rule of thumb is that the focus should be moving from top to bottom, left to right. For this exercise, the first thing we'll check
Checkout
is
form,
the focus order of the
Microsoft
page.
0% vertically scroll.
We'll check the focus order of the page. So the focus is on the browser. Let's start tapping.
Checkout form, address,
So it
editing,
first goes to the
required,
address,
Cozy,
go
link,
back up to Cozy
tooltip,
link,
first name,
go
editing,
to first name,
last
and then
name,
go to last name.
editing.
So as you can see, the focus is not very logical. It jumps down all the way to address input field, go back up, and then go back to the first name and last name input field. And like I said before, a good rule of thumb is that the focus should be moving from top to bottom, left to right. And in this case, it doesn't. So let's take a look at the address input field code and as we can see, it has a tab index equals 1. Now the tab index attribute is an attribute that developers use to essentially hard code in the focus order of the web page. So developers can put tab index equals 1 into the address input field, and then tab index equals 2 on first name, tab index equals 3 on username. And when they do that, when you open the page, it will go from address to first name to, I think I said username. But anyway, it can create a situation where the focus is illogical. So that's why when we talk with clients, we never recommend them to have tab index equals a positive number. So in this case, we can just simply remove.
The editor is not accessible at this time.
We can simply remove the input tab index equals 1 from the code.
Base.
And if I save it and then reload the page.
File : /0% vertically.
Now, if you tap through the page,
checkout form, Cozy,
link,
first name, last name, username,
email. So as you can see, now
at example.com.
Focus order. Another important concept that Nia and Michelle talked about is the ability for users with disability to use the keyboard to access interactive components such as links and buttons on the page. So if we continue to go down
and select name, credit, and content information, editing.
You will notice that the focus skip over the continue to checkout button. And if we take a look at the code, we can see that the continue to checkout button is actually structured as a div. So div by itself does not have it does not get keyboard focus, and this create a situation where users with disability would go through the page and then they can't find the continue to checkout button, which is really which is not good, because now they can't check out, they can't pay for their product at all. So to fix this issue, we would want to actually use native HTML elements like a actual button. So if I
The editor is not accessed.
if I change it to a button
The editor
and then
and
put
slash button. The
and I
S.
save and then
Checkout
let me
form.
reload the
Microsoft
page.
refreshing.
So now if I reload the page
Fuzzy.
and I go through the page
So
again,
C editing. Continue to checkout button. Scan.
so there you go. Now we can access the continue to checkout button. And then if you take a look at it, up here, the shipping fee breakdown doesn't look like a link, right? But it's actually structured as a link. And as you can see, it has an anchor tag element surrounding the shipping fee breakdown. However, it does not receive keyboard focus. And I believe Nhi also mentioned this in her exercise, but we need an href in an anchor tag in order to give it, to make it keyboard accessible. So
The editor
I
is
would
not space.
I
F
would
ref
put
the
an
double number sign. S.
So by doing this, the browser will recognize that this is actually a link and will give it keyboard focus by default. So if I
S.
refresh,
15% vertically refreshing page. Checkout form.
so now you can see the change in the shipping fee breakdown. Now it changes color to blue, which is the standard color for links. And now if you tap through the page,
shipping fee breakdown, link, first name, editing.
now shipping fee breakdown will actually receive focus and user can actually interact with it and goes to the page where they can actually see the shipping fee breakdown. But I believe you mentioned this as well. This is not good enough. We can make this better by adding text decoration of an underline underneath it, so that when users are going through the page and they have some kind of color impairment, they can still recognize the shipping fee breakdown as a link and be able to activate it. So for exercise 6 submission, we would like you to copy the code that removes the tab index from the address input field and the code that fixes the shipping fee breakdown link and continue checkout button, and then put it in the submission form. And then moving on to form field, we want to make sure that form have a valid and visual label. And it's important because having a valid label will let users know the purpose of an input field or purpose of a form control. So when users are trying to interact with those controls, they will know exactly what the controls are and what interacting with those controls will do. And then also we need to ensure that the form control also have a visual label, and this will help users with cognitive disability tremendously, because it will allows them to quickly look at the label and know exactly what they should be filling in for those form controls. Now moving on to exercise 7, if we take a look at the input field, you can see that each input field have a visual label, which, like I said, is very important for users with cognitive disability. And if you tap through it,
tooltip, shipping fee, first name, editing, required, last name, editing, required.
You can see that the first name and last name input field has a valid label as well, because the label is actually announced when the focus is on the input field. So this really give users with disability let users with disability know the focus of that field. And but there's one exception to this, is the zip input field. So if I go through
State, choose, combo box, collect, editing, required, invalid, capital Z.
So if I go to a zip input field, like you heard, there's no purpose announced. It doesn't say zip input field editing. It just say input field editing. And this can be very confusing for users with visual impairment, because they rely on hearing those information to know exactly what to fill in to the zip input field. And without that, it's very difficult for them to recover from a mistake, or be able to fill the form in a correct way the first time around. So let's go to the code and find where the zip.
Find on page, no results. Check, the editor is not accessible at this time. Press Alt plus F1 for options, editing text.
So as you can see, the input field here has an ID of zip, but it doesn't have a label to associate it, to associate the input field with. So what we can do to give this input field purpose and to give it also a visual label, we can create a label element. And let me
Exiting narrator.
We can create a label element, and with the for attribute targeting the ID of the input field. So label for zip, and then inside the label we can put a visual label for the zip input field. So say zip code, and if I save it, refresh the page, as you can see now it has the visual label. So users with cognitive disability, when they type something in, they can clearly know when they go back and review their work is that 129389 is the zip code. So if I turn on narrator,
Starting meeting controls when check out state uncheck credit editing uncheck zip code editing
and I go
required
back to the zip
zip.
input field.
Zip code editing required zip.
Now screen reader will also announce the zip code along with the input field. So now we are able to give that input field a purpose as well. So now a way to improve this form even more is by providing a form instruction. So if you just take a look at the form, you know that the email is optional and the address too is optional. But what about the other fields? Are they optional? Are they required? It's not 100% clear. And for users with cognitive disability, it's extremely important for us to provide form instruction, because they can read the form instruction, they know right away what is required and what is not. And this will really help them fill out the form correctly the first time and really improve their user experience as well. So for form instruction, usually we want to put it at the beginning of the form. So ideally somewhere above the billing address. So if I go back into the code, I'll find where the billing address is. There we go. And then from there, I can put in an instruction for this form. So for this form, we know that all form fields are required unless it's marked optional. So we can put that exact instruction up there. So all form fields are required unless marked optional. So now when you refresh the page and users with cognitive disability would say go through the page visually, or even go through the page with the screen reader, they would hear all form fields are required unless optional. And when they're filling out the form, they know right away that, oh, I need to fill out everything unless it has the optional tag into it. So it will be very clear to them what to do. For exercise 7, for the submission, we would like you to copy the code that gives the zip input field a visible and valid label, and then take a picture that verifies the code of the instruction is at the beginning of the form, and put that in the form submission.
Now that we almost reached to the end of our workshop, I would like to provide you some resources that you can use to research and then study on your own if you are interested in the topic on website accessibility. So the first one we have right here is WebM. So this one is a non-profit organization that based at Utah State University, and it has been providing website accessibility solutions in 1999. The second one we have right here is very familiar with you guys. We've been doing that a lot in all of the MIS courses, which is W3C schooling. So W3C stands for World Wide Web Consortium, and it developed international standard for all the web, including HTML, CSS, and so many more. So under W3C umbrella, we have WAI, which stands for Web Accessibility Initiative, and this develops standard and support materials to help you understand and implement accessibility. And finally, we have the one right here, which is WCAG, which stands for Web Content Accessibility Guideline. This covers a wide range of recommendations for making web content more accessible.
That is all of the exercise that we have for you guys. Thank you so much for tuning into our workshop. I hope that was informative and you guys had fun following along.
All right, so for the submission, which is the most important part because you need to do the participation for AIS, what you're gonna do is go to the folder that we share with you. Here is the submission folder. So if you click on this file, and then you can do, which is like download. And once you enter all of the screenshot for color contrast and then put in all of the table link, finally, you're gonna submit the file using this link where you're gonna put in your first name, last name, TUID. It's gonna lead you to the next section for putting in your file, and you should be ready to go.